If you need to report your GHG inventory, your carbon footprint, for whatever reason, you need to make sure you're doing it right. This is the second in a series of videos where I talk through the principles of carbon reporting as set out in the GHG protocol. I'm also going to cover the 2 additional principles that are set out in the UK Environmental Reporting Guidelines. Hi there, my name's Kev Cooling from Hut22, your carbon and facilitation specialist. Look, if you don't want to watch the rest of this video and you want to jump straight into having a chat with an expert about the principles of carbon reporting or anything else carbon related, then go ahead, find the link in the description of this video and book yourself a free call with me today. If you want to hear more, let's go. I've already talked about the first 2 principles, relevance and completeness, in a previous video. So the next one is consistency. And as I said in that previous video, the definitions that are set in the GHG protocol and the UK Environmental Reporting Guidelines are largely the same. Sometimes one is a little bit better than the other. So today I'm going to give you the UK Guidelines definition for this particular principle. So I'm going to read it out. I don't know by heart, I'm going to read it out. Use consistent methodologies to allow for meaningful comparisons of environmental impact data over time. Document any changes to the data, changes in your organisational boundary, methods, or any other relevant factors. Okay, there are 2 things to think about here. You need to be confident that the reporting in your current year is done on the same basis as any previous reporting you've done. So it uses the same boundaries, includes the same stuff, both in terms of your organisational structure and the actual emission sources you're using. It uses the same calculation methodologies, for instance. That's really important if you've got estimates, and so on. So everything needs to be consistent with previous years. If any of that changes and you aren't clear about it, then that might lead you to make bad decisions about investing or not in some emissions reduction activity, or implementing or not new policies or governance arrangements, or maybe even publishing data that actually isn't useful to stakeholders. And the second thing relates to that last point. If you do end up publishing something that isn't consistent with previous years, and the stakeholders who are interested in your carbon reporting spot that, then that's likely to erode trust. And of course, that's not something that you want. I note here that there may well be times when things do change from year to year. And you know what? That's okay. And in fact, it's expected. As your reporting becomes more complete and more sophisticated, things probably will change. A really important part of having robust management processes around your carbon reporting is that you establish what's called a recalculation policy. Now that policy will make it explicit under what conditions you'll go back and recalculate baseline emissions or even subsequent emissions when things change in future years. So do make sure you've got a recalculation policy in place as part of your management process. And of course, if things are going to change from year to year, well, it's really important that stakeholders understand why that's happened. And that brings us on to the next principle, which is transparency. Again, the definition in the 2 documents is pretty similar. Address all relevant issues in a factual and coherent manner based on a clear audit trail. Disclose any relevant assumptions and make appropriate references to the accounting and calculation methodologies and data sources used. Now, the UK guidelines definition actually strays beyond the definition, I think, and starts to talk about advice. So let's put that together with a few tips from me. Details of the methodology that you've used to identify the data, capture it, process it, apply calculations, use emissions factors, maybe the known omissions with an O, not an E, the level and impact of any estimations you've got in your carbon footprint. That's detail that probably you don't want your stakeholders to be confronted with when they first open your carbon reporting. But it is really important that it is captured somewhere. What I tend to do is put all key information in the main document and then put all that kind of detailed methodology information in a separate appendices document. There's loads of different ways of doing it. That's how I tend to do it. But what is really important is that information is captured somewhere in a clear, unbiased, concise way that your stakeholders can access if they want to. It's also important, of course, that anybody internally who's reviewing the work before it gets published has access to all that information. And of course, external verifiers need to have access to it as well if external verification is something that you're going to do. So there you have it. Another 2 carbon reporting principles explained. My name's Kev Cooling from Hut22. If you want to have a chat about any aspect of carbon reporting or net zero, then please find the link in the description of this video and book yourself a free call today.